Hello everyone, good afternoon and a very warm welcome to today's webinar. My name's Jackie and today we're going to be looking at the construction industry scheme and looking at processing using the CIS module. Just before we begin, a little bit of housekeeping in case you're new to our webinars. So you will be placed on mute for today's session. It just means you can't speak to the team directly, but that's not to say that your questions aren't welcome today. So if you do have any questions, we do have both Tina, Michael and also Abby, who's just joined us, on hand to answer your questions. So please use the questions panel. It should be on the right hand side of your screen. If you use that option, it looks like a speech bubble with a question mark in the middle. That will open up the questions panel and you can type your questions across to the team there. There is also a handout for today, so if you do want a copy of today's slides, then please do take the opportunity to do that during today's session. It won't be available after the session until it's uploaded onto Sage City, so please do take a copy of that, and that has all of the slides for you today. Okay, so what we're going to be covering today is we're going to look at the CIS module. So we're going to be talking through activating that module if you haven't already done so. I'm going to talk you through verification using the module, how to process CIS transactions, how to generate the CIS return, and also CIS statements. So there may be some of you who have joined today's session looking for CIS domestic reverse charge. Don't worry, we haven't forgotten about that. That is a session in its own right, and we will be doing that next Wednesday at the same time. So please do stay with us for today, but we won't be covering domestic reverse charge just yet because we wanted to set down the foundations first. We'll look at that next week at 2 p.m. So please do join us for that. If you need a link for that, please just pop something in the chat and we'll get the link for you. But it is available on the Help Centre in exactly the same place that you signed up for today's session. So sage.co.uk/help. If you type in the word webinars, it will take you to our webinar page and you can see all of our upcoming webinars that are available on there as well. Okay, so first of all, I am going to put a poll out there for you because we do just want to check who we've got joining us today. So you should see this appear on your screen in the next few moments. What we'd like to know is, are you a main contractor? Are you a subcontractor? Or are you a bit of both a main and a subcontractor? So like I say, you should see that on your screen. If you can pop a tick in the correct box, and that gives us an idea of who's joining us on today's session. There is a slight delay on here, so I'll just wait for those to come across. Started to come across there. Fabulous. Just wait till we've got around 70% of you voted, just so I can capture a good range of answers there. Okay, fabulous. So we just hit the 80% mark there almost, so that's great. So just to share that, just so you can all see, completely anonymous, but most of you are both main and subcontractors. So that was something that came to light a lot during domestic reverse charges that was being rolled out. Then we've got 33% of you as a main contractor, and subcontractors, we do just have a small portion of you. Okay, now that's good. That's good to hear, because the module we're going to go through today is only to be used by main contractors for looking after subcontractor payments and records, etc. It's not to say that today won't be useful. You might want to watch through, but like I say, we're not going to be covering anything from the subcontractor side today. It is all around the main contractor. Okay, so I'm just going to hide that poll there. And first of all, we're just going to talk about what the CIS module actually does. So it is an add-on license. It might be something that's already included in your subscription, or you may need to purchase it as an additional module. If you're not sure if it's included, then you would be best to speak to our technical support team or log on to your MySage account and just take a look at what's included in your subscription. Now, with the CIS module, it allows you to do certain tasks that you would need to do under the CIS scheme from within the software. So things like verification. It also allows you to submit your CIS returns. Also, it allows you to issue subcontractor statements, and it contains all of the information on your subcontractors in one place within those records as well. The key thing for me is that it automatically calculates CIS deduction postings for you. So you don't need to worry too much about working out those calculations of if it's 20% or 30%. The software will take care of that for you as well. So it takes a little bit of the legwork out of using the CIS, or sorry, the construction industry scheme. So first of all, if you are going to use this module, it will need to be activated first. Now I'm going to show you this in just a moment in a set of data that hasn't got it activated. And to get to this feature, you will need to go into Tools and then Activation and then enable the construction industry scheme. So from here, I'm going to just switch over onto a live data set to actually show you this in action. So I'm just going to pause the screen for one moment while we pull this data set across. I'm just going to pop into my data set that isn't yet activated. So I've got two companies we're going to look at today. So I'll just show the screen there, make sure that feeds across. Okay, so if I've got it included in my license, then what I need to do is go into Tools, Activation, and you'll be able to see the option to enable construction industry scheme. Now at this point, if I click on here, it will start up a wizard. So when you're activating any features within the software, it will normally launch a wizard for you. So it's giving you a bit of an introduction first, but the key ones I'm going to look at today for you are the nominal codes. So if we click on Next, it's automatically come up with some default nominal codes for me. So when we're using the construction industry scheme within the software, we need to be using specific nominal codes. Now, these are the defaults that would normally be picked up. If you're using a specific nominal structure, which is slightly different to the default one, then this is something you may need to consider changing these to be in line with your nominal structure. But by default, it will normally pick up codes in the 6,000 range for our CIS labour and materials codes. We have CIS tax and the tax liability, which are obviously in our liabilities range. And we've got the CITB levy, which will normally fall within the profit and loss there. So these codes will be used going forward for our CIS transactions. If I click on Next, it will ask for the company details. Now, the more information we can put into here, the more likely we'll be able to submit verification and also submit the CIS returns from the software. So if you've got this to hand when you're activating, that's great. It makes life much easier, but these can be added at a later date if you need to do so. And next, the next one is your e-submissions. So this is your government gateway login details so that the software can link across to HMRC on your behalf and do the submissions for you direct from your software without you having to come out of your software and then go and do a manual submission. Now, I haven't entered any details because in true Blue Peter fashion, I do have a data set that I created earlier. We're going to go to that one for the rest of the demonstration. But like I say, if you haven't got this at the moment, you can activate the module and come back to that at a later point within settings and then company preferences. Okay. So once we've got it activated, I just want to show you a few things that do change within the software. Now, again, I'm just going to pull up a slightly different data set. I've got my CIS data set, so I'm just going to pop into that to demonstrate the next few things for you. And that should be us there. Okay, so the first thing that will happen once you've activated the module is you will notice down the left-hand side that we have a new module. And that module is called subcontractors. So if you've got a subcontractor option down the left-hand side, that means you've already activated the CIS module. As you can see here, I've already got some subcontractors in here. And if I open up one of these records, just gone onto the other screen, if I open up one of these records, within the record itself, there is also an additional tab. So you can see there, the second one down is the CIS tab. And that holds the information for that particular subcontractor. So we've got things like verification numbers, UTRs, national insurance numbers. It holds all of that data in one place for us. Now, the thing with the subcontractors is the subcontractor could be a subcontractor, but also a supplier at the same time. So they may offer you services that both fall within the construction industry scheme, but also fall outside of that. So what you will find is your subcontractors also sit in your suppliers module as well. Now, if you do already have all of your subcontractors in your software as suppliers, which you might do if you've been working for a while and you've just decided now is the time for the CIS module, then it is really easy to convert them across to a subcontractor just by filling that information in on the CIS tab. So once you've filled that information in, there's enough information to hold it, it will convert them to a subcontractor for you. So I'm just going to pop into this record here for you because there's a few things we can do from the software. Now, one of the first things that you'll need to do when you get a subcontractor, or if you're new to the scheme, is to verify your subcontractors. And one of the great features is that we can actually do that from within the software. Now, we have one option, which is just in the module itself to verify here. Or we do have the ability to verify each one individually within the CIS tab of each record using the Verify Now option. Now, what happens here if we verify now is it will connect to HMRC, providing we've entered our login details, and it will do the verification process that you can currently do manually on the gateway. I'm just going to log into a slightly different one in order to do this, just to sort of demonstrate that process. Just one of the ones I haven't got set up with data. So say, for example, I wanted to verify this one. It may be that I haven't dealt with them in the last 2 years, so I need to re-verify, or it may be that I've never verified them before. What I can do is click on Verify Now, and that will start sending that information across to HMRC, and it will feed back with information such as the deduction status, so whether they're net, whether they're gross, and that will come back into the software for me. Now, it won't do this in this particular data set, unfortunately, because it is a test data set, but in your software, what it will do is come back with that and populate those fields within the record. So what we would find is a verification number, the last verified date, and also the tax treatment would be applied to the record automatically. Now, don't worry if you have already done this manually on the gateway and you've got the verification details. You don't have to use the verify option. What you can do is just use the option here to type the verification number in, make sure you've got the correct date in there, and you can also just change the tax treatment as well. So if you don't want to use the verification feature, but you've got the verification details there, then that can be done manually in the software there. Just to be aware though, if you are going to use the verification feature within the software, you do need to have certain bits of information. So this area here will need to be filled in depending on what type of business they are in order to do that verification step. And it does differ depending on whether they're a trust, a sole trader, as you can see different features open up there, or if they're a partnership, etc. And that will need to be filled in before you can verify your subcontractors. So I'm just going to pop back into the one that I'm going to use heavily for my demonstration today, which is the one at the bottom here. And I just want to show you their status on their CIS tab. So they have been verified recently with HMRC. As you can see, their current rate is net standard rate. So we know that there should be 20% deductions made on any of their invoices. And that's all stored in the software for me, should I need to come back to that. So that's verification. And like I say, that's optional whether you do it through the software or whether you just use it to store the details from HMRC. So next I'm going to just show you how to enter some CIS transactions. Now my recommendation is, if you notice a CIS invoice, is to process any invoices from within the subcontractor window. It doesn't really matter as long as you've got the right nominal codes. However, if you do it from the subcontractor window, it will only pick up the CIS nominal codes. So just as an example, if I pop into suppliers and go into batch invoice for Smith Builders, in here automatically the nominal code is selecting a non-CIS nominal code for materials. Now I know that it's 6,000, so I can select it, that's not a problem, but it opens me up to errors. If I know that this is a definite CIS invoice, then I would recommend going to subcontractors, pop on the invoice from within here, and automatically it will assign one of the CIS nominal codes. So again, it just limits the number of nominal codes offered to you. It makes it harder to make a mistake on the invoice itself. So I'm going to just pop an invoice on as an example with the date that I've got specified. So we are at the moment using October dates, just so I could make sure everything was fitting in for you. So I'm going to pop in an invoice for labour. So we do need to still do the labour and material split on the invoice. I'm just going to put any value in and use the relevant tax code. So if it is subject to domestic reverse charge, I will give you a sneak peek of next week. We will need to use one of the CIS reverse charge codes. So I'm going to pop that on for the time being, but we'll explain more on that next week. And I've also got some materials on this order as well. So I'm just going to add that on as well. So we must make sure that they're separated out into the separate nominal codes, and that will help us with the CIS return. So I'm just going to put another value on there. And again, if they're all part of the same order, I'm going to pop it onto a T21. Okay, so nothing different at this point other than the nominal codes that we're using, the CIS nominal codes. So I'm going to save that now. Okay, so no surprises there, but it does cause a lot of calls and a lot of confusion because at the moment there's no recollection of anything to do with CIS at the moment. So if I pop into my into my nominal codes and have a look at my CIS liabilities, which are down here, you can see there I do have values on them, but there's nothing to do with those invoices that I've popped on at present. Okay, so those invoices are just like a normal invoice. So we've got 7,017, 520 at the moment. The CIS comes into play when we actually pay off that invoice. Okay, so remember the dates are really important when we're talking about CIS. So I'm actually going to go and now process that payment. So I'm going to pop into bank accounts. And again, the way we pay it is very much the same as a normal invoice, but you will see something slightly different in just a moment. So I'm going to go into supplier payment. So it is supplier payment, not subcontractor payment at the moment. I'm just going to find my Smith Builders. And what you'll see there is it looks exactly the same, but we do have 2 additional columns which have appeared as a result of the CIS module. Now, if you remember, the CIS scheme only applies to the labour element of your invoice. So you will see a difference here. My labour element of the invoice was the first line there. You can see it's applying a CIS tax treatment net to this particular line, and gross is on the actual goods or materials. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pay these in full. And when I pay them in full, we look at the payment for the labour. You can see it's not paid in full, but we do have £40 in our CIS tax column. So again, it's automatically calculated what the CIS tax should be. I haven't had to do anything at all. It's calculated that for me, and it's only going to pay them £160 of the £200 invoice for the labour element. So nice and easy, it's done the calculation, and I'm going to pop save on there now. Now what that did do, when it posts the transactions, I'm going to pop into the transactions there, is we originally put on the invoice, 2 invoices there. What it's done is processed the payment, but in addition, it's posted a credit note for me to the CIS tax account for £40, so 2101. You can see that's there. So if we pop back onto the nominal codes, we look in 2101, that has changed because it was previously 7,070. So that's increased by £40 as a result of that particular transaction. So it's moved that liability across into the CIS tax control account for us. So it is nice and easy in terms of doing those transactions. It takes care of the calculation, and it does that, the credit note automatically on your behalf as a result of it being a subcontractor and them having a tax rate applied. So the next thing to do is to do a CIS return. Now to find the CIS return, we go back into the subcontractor module. So everything to do with CIS is within here. You'll notice there is a supplier payment option in here. And you can use that one as well. It will do exactly the same as the original supplier payment I showed you from the bank there. There's a great question come through there around asking if you want to pay CIS and non-CIS invoices. I'll see if I can demonstrate that in a moment for you and try and create that for you, okay? If not, I'll find you the article that details each of those. It's not to say that there's something going wrong, so don't worry, but we'll have a look at that for you. It might be some of the transactions may be using wrong nominal codes, and sometimes that's quite normal as well. I think Michael's going to send something over for you. Okay, so the CIS return is at the top of the window here. And if you are familiar with VAT returns, the CIS return is even more simpler than that one. It is literally just one window for us. So at the top, we can see the tax year. So I've got the correct tax year selected. But what I am going to do is just change this into the month that I've just done those payments for. So I'm going to change this drop down to the month that I've just processed transactions for. So what that's done, as soon as I've selected that month, it's looked for payments within that period. Okay, so it's not looking at invoices. And that again is another key question we get is why is my invoice not on my CIS return? It's because it's possibly paid in a different period to the invoice. So it's looking for that tax month and it's looking for any payments made within that period where those nominal codes were used. So they have to be using those 6,000 codes. It's picked them up. And you can see there, I've processed one earlier for John Smith, but we've also got Denby Roofing, so there was obviously a payment made in that month as well. If we want to look a little bit more in depth as to what those transactions were, you can see there the original transactions that I've just posted, and it gives you a bit more of a breakdown there. And I can have a look into this one as well. So this is where you would just go through each of your subcontractors and make sure your figures and values were correct. But once you're happy, it is as simple as clicking submit online, and that will send that across to HMRC on your behalf. So a little bit like the VAT return, we've got to go through a couple of declarations there to make sure that the subcontractors we're using shouldn't be treated more as an employee. So we're doing some declarations there, and then it will try and send that across on your behalf. Now, bear in mind, if you're submitting on submission day, then there could be a delay on this because everyone will be submitting at the same time. So just bear that in mind. If you do get any polling, just keep trying. It will eventually go through. But we do find that there are polling issues around that time. And that will send that data across to HMRC, and it will mark those transactions as reconciled for CIS. Now, the beauty of this new version, so there are two versions of the CIS module, and most of you will probably be using version 2 if it's something that you're new to now. If you've been using CIS for a while and you're using version 1, then this bit I'm about to tell you doesn't actually apply. But with version 2, if you make an error on a CIS transaction or you need to make a correction, you can actually then resubmit a CIS return to HMRC to inform them of that change. Now, if you're using version 1, that's not the case, unfortunately. You do need to go back to HMRC and discuss with them the error that has been made. But if I did need to redo a CIS return or resubmit a CIS return, then I can pop into CIS return, locate the month where I've made a transaction change. So I could correct the transaction as I would do a normal transaction, but I'd just go back and find the month that I need to submit. And then I would just submit online again. And it just resubmits the whole return again, informing them of what the new period values were. So if you're using CIS V2, that is a fantastic feature. It makes life much easier now that you can use that facility. Okay, so that's the CIS return. So once you've done your return, there is one more thing that you need to do by obligation, and that is to inform your subcontractors of the deductions that you have made by issuing them with a subcontractor statement. And again, this is all taken care of by the module automatically for you, and it provides them with all of the information that you need to inform them of by default. So there's nothing that you need to add on to here. So to do statements, again, we stick in the subcontractor window. We've got the option for statements at the top. I'll pop into layouts, and there is only one, so there's not it's not a huge choice. I can definitely demonstrate this one for you. So I'm just going to double click. I've only got 4 subcontractors. I can pick which ones I'm going to do it for, but to be honest, I'm just going to run it for all 4 of mine. And we scroll down to the one I demonstrated today. Should see. Hang on, just go a little bit further down. There you go. So you can see the statement for the 5th of the 11th there. So the earlier ones in my example here obviously haven't had a payment for a while, so their last statement is the end of 2009. However, if we look at the ones we've submitted for today, you can see that I've got a statement for them as of 2022 there. Okay, so for the statement to pick up payment, they have to be submitted via the CIS module. Okay, so you wouldn't be able to create the statement if you're not using the module for submitting. So the transaction has to be flagged as submitted, and at that point you can create a monthly statement for that subcontractor. As you can see, it shows you everything that HMRC requires, so it shows you how much the deductions have been made on your behalf. Also, one other thing, as a result of doing the CIS return, just want to show you one more thing that does occur. When you complete and submit the CIS return, it does do a journal for you. So all of the CIS tax that's owed for that particular month is journaled out of 2101, which is a control account, onto 2102, which is a liability account. So it moves that value across, ready for you to pay HMRC when you're ready to make that payment. So when you do make your bank payment, you would make it to 2102 and clear the liability down. Okay, so a whistle-stop tour of the CIS module. Like I say, next week we're going to go into a little bit more depth with the domestic reverse charge, so please do join us on that. I'm just going to go through a few additional slides, and then what I'm going to try and do is just recreate the issue that Sarah mentioned, because it is a common one. It might just take me a moment or two just to set that up so I can demonstrate it for you, and hopefully you'll hang on so you can see that one. So I'm just going to get the PowerPoint back. Pop that onto the screen. Okay, so just to summarize, it will only work for main contractors. Okay, so to be used by main contractors processing subcontractor invoices. You can verify them directly in the software if you wish to do so, or you can just use it to store that verification information on their record. CIS transactions, the key things to remember is you must use the CIS nominal codes for it to be picked up by the CIS return, and you must also remember that the dates are really important. It's the date of the payment. When you when you pop on an invoice with labour, the deduction is calculated automatically for you. So that's based on the deduction rate you apply to the subcontractor record. It will automatically calculate that for you. And that means that when you do produce the CIS return, I think a question's just come through there for you, it automatically pulls through those deductions for you. So everything's automatically calculated. You don't need to start working out how much CIS is deducted. And remember, it can be used to calculate and submit the CIS return to HMRC, and also is really useful if you have to make an amendment to a transaction that you've already submitted to HMRC, because you can then resubmit and inform HMRC of the changes there. Okay, so just a little reminder, next week we will be covering domestic reverse charge. So that's CIS Part 2. It's far too much to cover in one session. So please do get yourself signed up for that one next week. If domestic reverse charge impacts you in any way, we'll look at it from both a supplier and a customer point of view. We're also looking at journals. So journals is a topic that many people are a bit worried about. Some people don't use them at all. Some people use them very heavily. So we're just going to do a session on journals in general, and that will be next Thursday that Michael will be taking you through that. So please do check that one out as well. And they're all available on our Help Centre article. In addition, we do have Sage membership, so it's something to make you aware of. If you've got a subscription with us, you do have Sage membership, which allows you access to Sage University, which is our Sage learning platform. There's loads of training available on there, free of charge. So if you want to get yourself certified on accounts or payroll, or you want more information on CIS, there is a CIS course on there. So by all means, check that out on sageu.com. We also have access to Sage City. So Sage City is our online community. Within there, you can find access to forums. You can submit your ideas for improvements to the software. And also, you can find recordings of some of our webinars, and some of our frequently asked questions are stored on there as well. We don't store them all. We do just try and pick out the frequently asked questions because some of them can be quite specific. And then finally, we do have the Sage Masterclasses as well. So we're now in season 2. Season 2 is all around productivity. So we've got guest speakers and experts from around the globe talking through different aspects of productivity. Season 1 was also around finding and keeping great people, and that was going through things like world-class onboarding experiences, nurturing talent, and also retaining talent within your business as well. So that's all free of charge, so please do check that out, and the links are all in the handout for you today. Okay, so that's the end of the demonstration for today. If you are leaving, thank you very much for joining us. I'm going to put myself on mute for just a moment so I can just see if I can set up that example that was asked earlier on, just so I can show you what it's asking there. So put myself on mute while I create that. But in the meantime, if you've got any questions, get them across and the team are more than happy to answer those for you. Okay, so keep them coming and I will be back in a few moments, hopefully with an example to demonstrate for you. Okay, just created the example there for you. Okay, so I think this is the one that you were referring to a little bit earlier on, and this is where you get a message and there's 4 different options. Now, not all of them will be available to you each and every time. Okay, so what happens is it looks, when you're going to pay an invoice, it looks at the record and looks at all of the outstanding invoices. Now, in this case, I have a subcontractor who has some invoices that I've used the CIS nominal codes, so 6000 and 6001, but they're also a supplier that I've used the 5000 codes on as well. Okay, so what I can't do is I can't pay or allocate non-CIS transactions to CIS transactions. So what it's letting me do here is choose what I want to do at this point. Okay, so at the moment it's asking if I want to pay CIS and non-CIS invoices, and what that will do, I always call this window like a kind of filter. It will filter out different transactions. So if I decided I wanted to just allocate and pay my non-CIS transactions, I'll say okay to that. It filters out the non-CIS, sorry, the CIS transactions. So I'm only dealing with non-CIS transactions at the moment. Now, if I just try to pick that one up again, so I'm just going to pick that up there. So if I just automatically pick that subcontractor, you can see that there's 4 invoices all waiting to be paid. Now, if I said pay CIS and non-CIS invoices, it's not filtering anything out at the moment because it was giving me the option to do both. One more time. Just to go back. So the 2 options that are grayed out here is asking me if I had invoices and credits that had CIS labour, that would have allowed me to allocate those in this particular window, and it would only show me invoices and credits that are using my CIS labour nominal code. So I always say use this as a sort of filter. However, if you've got this window and all of your transactions should be CIS transactions, and it's giving you the option to pay non-CIS and non-CIS invoices, you might just want to go and check you've popped the right nominal codes on some of your transactions. That's all. Okay, so quick questions that are coming through there just around can you speak to someone? Yes, our support teams are still able to support you on CIS transactions and queries. So if you do have something specific that might be worthwhile us taking a look at with you and going through a few examples, yes, our support team are available. So please do give them a call. They'll be able to look at that for you. So another question there is, if you're getting this message, and you shouldn't be because they should all be subcontracted transactions, then you'll need to have a look at those original transactions. They might need to be amended so that the nominal codes are correct. There could be a little bit more to that, as in have they been previously included in CIS returns outside of the software, so it might need a bit more digging around. So definitely speak to the support team on that one. Really good question there, which I'm going to answer. It has been answered already around how often should you verify. So you would normally verify subcontractor if you've not used them before, or if you haven't used them in the previous 2 tax years. So you don't have to do them on a regular basis. So like I said, if you're going to move across to the module and everyone's already verified, then you can just bring that information across and pop it into the record. You don't have to keep re-verifying them. Okay, so I think that's most of the questions there. So thank you very much to everyone for joining us today. Like I say, we're doing CIS domestic reverse charge next week, so it'd be great to see you all on that session as well. But outside of that, we've got lots of sessions still on. So we've got month end tomorrow. So if you want to join us for month end, again, get yourself signed up on the Help Centre. And next week, like I say, we're looking at journals and domestic reverse charge. So it'd be great to see you there. In addition, we're trying some new topics. So we do have one on reporting as well. So if you've ever thought you want to learn a little bit more around report design, what you can maybe do to make your reports a bit more bespoke, then we do have a session on Tuesday as well on report design. So please do join us for that one too. In the meantime, though, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you again to the team for answering the questions. And we'll see you all again on another session very soon. Take care, everyone.